Hello, brothers and sisters. Last week, we talked about the content of the image of God. We talked about how that content is about having a relationship with God. The type of relationship is that of a servant to a king. God is all powerful and deserves our loyalty, obedience, and devotion all the time. The other part of that relationship is a reciprocal type of love. God not only shares his creation with us, but he shares of himself and he shares of his love. He wants us to be in a relationship with him where we are grateful for that love and we reciprocate that love back to him. The other part of the content of the image is how he designed us to have dominion over the earth. We are to rule and subdue the earth and other living things, but we are supposed to do it in a way in which glorifies God and shows that we are good stewards to all that he has provided for us. Today, we're going to talk about the implications of being created in the image of God. There are several extremely important implications that we're going to talk about this morning. Some of them we've already mentioned. The first one is that authentic humanness can be explained and experienced only in reference to God. The very essence of human nature, at its very core, is spirit. Yes, we have a body, but unfortunately, we have a body that's been corrupted by sin. We will one day receive a new perfect body, but at our very essence, we are spirit. The essence of spirit is personhood, which is another way of saying that we are made in the image of God. So in order to define ourselves, we have to define ourselves in relation to God, not to animals. We are unique, and we find that specific uniqueness through our relationship with God. The second concept, an implication of the image of God, gives us the answer to the question of the purpose and meaning of all human existence. We mentioned this last week. We exist as being a servant in fellowship with God and having dominion over the earth. Everything that we have and everything that we are belongs to God. Our time, our talents, those are for him because we are his servants. But we also enjoy the love and goodness that comes from his fellowship. We also, have a duty. We have the authority over the earth to use it and develop it, all while glorifying God in everything that we do. The third implication is that human beings are truly unique, and they are qualitatively different from all other earthly creatures. Not only do we stand apart from other creatures, but according to Genesis, we stand over them by God's divine mandate. By virtue of being in his image, we rule over all other earthly creatures. We are above them. Through this implication comes the basis and unique respect for human life that we are supposed to have. Now, the Bible is very clear when it comes to God's stance on human life. Genesis chapter 9, verses 5 through 6, "And for your lifeblood, I will surely demand an accounting. I will demand an accounting from every animal and from each human being too. I will demand an accounting for the life of another human being. Whoever sheds human blood, by humans shall their blood be shed, for in the image of God has God made mankind." In Exodus chapter 20, verse 13, "You shall not murder." God places a high standard on human life. We are allowed to kill and harvest animals. No, we're not allowed to be wasteful or anything else. But human beings are protected because all of us are created in the image of God. This is the primary reason as to why, abortion is wrong. This is something that the worldly side of humanity doesn't want to ever consider. Every human being is created in the image of God. And that unborn child is just as much in the image of God as is one that's already been born. The world likes to think of it as just a clump of cells. It's easier to deal with terminating a life if you can dehumanize it. You think of all these people that have committed genocide throughout our history of the human race. And you see that they dehumanized another group, said they were subhuman. And that's what happens here. However, that unborn child has the innate capacity for a God relationship, even if that capacity has not even been developed yet. Psalm 139, verses 13 to 18. For you created my inmost being. You knit me together in my mother's womb. I praise you because I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Your works are wonderful. I know that full well. My frame was not hidden from you when I was made in the secret place. When I was woven together in the depths of the earth, your eyes saw my unformed body. All the days ordained for me were written in your book before one of them came to be. How precious to me are your thoughts, God. How vast is the sum of them. Were I to count them, they would outnumber the grains of sand. When I awake, I am still with you. Jeremiah chapter 1, verse 5. Before I formed you in the womb, this is God speaking, before I formed you in the womb, I knew you before you were born. I set you apart. I appointed you as a prophet to the nation. These scriptures reiterate the importance of life and how life was important even before it was born. And it reiterates the importance of the creation of life. You see, God has dominion over all life. And he creates what some people would call just a group of cells and gives them spirit, gives them personhood, makes them in his image. Human life is extremely sacred. And since all human life is unique, it has to be uniquely respected. We're going to go back to Genesis chapter 9 again. We'll look at verses 1 through 6 and see the difference between what it says about animals and humans. Then God blessed Noah and his sons, saying to them, be fruitful and increase in number and fill the earth. The fear and dread of you will fall on the beasts of the earth and on all the birds in the sky, on every creature that moves along the ground, and on all the fish in the sea. They are given into your hands. Everything that lives and moves about will be food for you. Just as I gave you the green plants, I now give you everything. But you must not eat meat that has its lifeblood still in it. And for your lifeblood, I will surely demand an accounting. I will demand an accounting from every animal, and from each human being too. I will demand an accounting for the life of another human being. Whoever sheds human blood by humans, shall their blood be shed. For in the image of God has God made mankind. So if you notice right here, there is a level of protection and respect that Scripture mandates for human beings. That is far different from animals. We can kill, we can harvest animals. We have to be good stewards about it. We can't just waste. But there is a distinction between killing an animal and killing another human being. It is a serious offense. I mean, the sixth commandment found in Exodus 20:13, you shall not murder, applies to human beings. It doesn't apply to animals. Now, Cottrell references this guy by the name of Albert Schweitzer. He wrote a book called Reverence for Life. His philosophy is that every life is sacred and there's nothing above any life that would be superior. So like a form of bacteria isn't any less any less than a human being. It's a very pagan and unbiblical philosophy. And it's really sad because I've seen people in our culture that are so willing to help out an animal, but could care less about a person. In fact, I remember a few years ago, there was some guy from the United States went to Africa and he hunted and killed a lion. There was such an outrage from people here in the United States. There were people who wanted this man actually to be executed. Now, you talk about having your priorities completely out of whack. Now, I'm not sure if he killed the lion legally or not. If he poached it, then he should be punished and he should be forced to make restitution. But to be put to death? I mean, it's ridiculous. Most modern approaches to animal rights are grounded, though, in this monistic worldview. And these are things that need to be rejected. To put us all on the same plane means that we are not uniquely created in God's image. But the Bible tells us otherwise. And we use Scripture to determine truth. Now, I'm not saying that if you have a pet, it's wrong to love them. I have 2 dogs. I love them very much. We do get attached to animals, but they're not people. They aren't created in God's image. We are. We have to respect human life. The fourth implication is that the image of God endows all human beings with the inherent dignity and value. Our primary identity is found because we are made in God's image. We couldn't ask for anything better. Now, it's true that we are all sinners, and we can identify with that. It's something that unites us all as people. We have all fallen short of God's glorious standard. We have a commonality in that. However, our identity as a sinner is secondary, and it's something that is acquired. However, it doesn't negate the fact that our primary and inherent identity is in God's image. We talk about this word dignity, and dignity is the state or quality of being worthy of honor or respect. This is something that is true for all human beings, whether we think so or not. Everyone deserves to be treated with respect. And this is really easy for us to do when we see someone that we admire. That's really easy to respect those types of people. We are all, quantitatively different in many things. There are some people that are extremely intelligent and they see the world as numbers, really smart math people. Others are extremely talented musically. Some have great athletic ability, but we are all ontologically and qualitatively equal. From the celebrity who thinks that they are far superior to the rest of the world, they don't realize that, hey, that's not true. But that's also the lowly person who thinks that they don't matter. They do. The person who is the famous celebrity just have a job that entertains us. But we are all created in the image of God, and we are all worthy of dignity and respect. Now, respect is hard for us sometimes, though, especially when we're dealing with a person who isn't reciprocating that. You hear all the time that respect is earned, it's not given. It's a horrible statement. But really, by that statement alone, you'll treat people like garbage until they show you respect, and then you'll be respectful. What is that going to accomplish? Absolutely nothing. We are created in the image of God. Every single human being who has ever lived or who will ever live has been created in the image of God. God values every single human being. Even the worst sinner still has this dignity and worth by default, since the form of the image is found in every single human being. Even though the content has been distorted by sin, the image endows all human beings with the same inherent dignity and value. Everyone, even the God-hating liberal, and I realize that this is hard for us sometimes. But what does Jesus say? Matthew chapter 5, verse 44, Jesus says, "But I tell you, love your enemies, pray for those who persecute you." Wow. Let's back up to Matthew 5. Let's back up to verses 39 to 42. "But I tell you, do not resist an evil person. If anyone slaps you on the right cheek, turn to them the other cheek also. And if anyone wants to sue you and take your shirt, hand over your coat as well. If anyone forces you to go 1 mile, go with them 2 miles. Give to the one who asks you, and do not turn away from the one who wants to borrow from you." Now, I know people will say, but this is hard. It is hard. But it's what Jesus calls us to do. It's how we Christians are to be set apart from the rest of the world. It's not just about our feelings. It's about what he says. This is what helps us to understand how God himself can love even the worst of sinners and give his life for them. I know that I have been disrespectful towards God at times in my life. I've been disobedient. I know that I have gone my own way and I've completely disregarded him. Yet he still loves me. He still loves us. He still gave us Jesus Christ. We have no excuse to not love others, including our enemies. John 3, verses 16 to 17, "For God so loved the world that he gave his one and only Son, that whoever believes in him shall not perish but have eternal life. For God did not send his Son into the world to condemn the world, but to save the world through him." See, God models this for us. He treats us with dignity and respect, even though we haven't always done the same towards him, and we haven't done it the same towards others. We have to, brothers and sisters, follow his example. not our own feelings, his example. That's what we're called to. The fifth implication is that being made in God's image, this is the primary basis for a positive self-image. We don't have to be divine in order to have self-esteem. We are wonderfully created in the image of God. We matter. We have purpose. One thing about us is, boy, we can be extremely critical towards ourselves, can't we? We can be our harshest critic. We point out all these things that are wrong and these flaws and everything else that we have. When it comes to forgiveness, we sometimes can extend it easily to others, but not ourselves. We matter. We have been created in his image. We have to remember that. Now, the sixth implication is that the image of God is a basic motivation for evangelism. If we are to acknowledge that all image bearers have dignity and they have value, then we also need to be concerned about their eternal destiny. This means that no matter how sinful a person is, we need to be actively concerned about their salvation. When a human being dies and they are unsaved, it means that person is going to spend their eternity in hell. Another person made in God's image will be separated from him forever. If that doesn't concern us as Christians, then we have to check our love and our compassion. I know it gets easy to be jaded when dealing with people who don't believe and who openly defy sometimes and curse God. Sometimes, other Christians relish the idea of a non-believer getting justice. But if we're truly living our faith like we are supposed to be, it should break our heart. It should move us to action. I know that if I wasn't a believer and someone who loved me was, and they didn't tell me about Jesus or warn me about hell, and I stood in judgment, I would not have felt loved by that person. I would feel the exact opposite. If you loved me, you would have told me. If you loved me, you would have warned me. Cottrell says that it is more important to save one individual made in God's image than to save a whole species that is not. And he has a good point here. Think about how much money and concern is put onto protecting animals. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't. We have to be good stewards. But shouldn't every resource go to saving a person in the image of God from hell? This is what truly matters in the end. All of this, everything around us, will eventually pass away. And the only thing that matters is our relationship with God and where we spend eternity. Eternity is an extremely, extremely long time. The seventh and final implication is that the image of God is a presupposition of and creates the very possibility of theology. God communicates truth to us through word revelation. Because we've been made in his image, we have the innate ability to receive his word and understand it. Through studying it and analyzing it, we can discern and we can formulate sound doctrine. And this, brothers and sisters, is the implications of being created in his image. God bless.